Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. Jake rolled his shoulders as he stepped out of the cramped city shuttle, the hum of the cosmopolitan alien metropolis buzzing like a circuit board around him. At his side, Lyra, with her luminescent skin slightly shimmering under the neon lights, seemed unbothered by the chaos. Her kind, the Zalari, were known for their poise. Finally home, Jake muttered as they approached their apartment building. The building itself was a mesh of human and Zalari architectural influences, symbolizing the unity yet distinct separation between their species. Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the small device in her hand. I need to check on the artifact I brought from Zealer. It's sensitive to energy fluctuations, and the city's power grid has been unstable. Jake's curiosity piqued as he unlocked their door. You've mentioned that artifact before, but I've never actually seen it. What's it look like? It's delicate, Lyra replied, stepping inside. The apartment was a blend of earthy tones from Jake's belongings and the sleek, minimalistic elements of Lyra's. She headed straight to her room, returning with a small, ornate box cradled carefully in her hands. Here, she said, setting it on the living room table. The box was exquisitely crafted, adorned with symbols that Jake assumed were Zalari script. As Lyra lifted the lid, a soft, pulsing glow emanated from within. Nestled inside was a crystalline object, throbbing with a light that seemed alive. Jake leaned closer, his eyes wide. What does it do? It's a memory keeper, Lyra explained. It stores memories, emotions, experiences. Zalari use them to keep our most cherished memories intact. Jake was about to ask more when his phone buzzed loudly on the table, startling them both. The crystal's glow intensified, and Lyra's eyes widened in alarm. Jake, don't. But it was too late. His hand, aiming to silence the phone, brushed against the crystal. A surge of light burst from the artifact, enveloping the room. Jake yelped, pulling back as the light engulfed Lyra, her figure becoming a silhouette within the brilliance. As the light dimmed, Jake blinked away the spots in his vision, finding Lyra slumped in her chair, her chest heaving. Lyra, are you okay? He rushed to her side, his hands hovering, unsure if he should touch her. Lyra's usual calm demeanor was shattered. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. I don't know what just happened, she gasped, clutching her chest. It's like a floodgate has opened in my mind. Jake knelt beside her, his concern etching deep lines across his forehead. What do you mean? Talk to me, Lyra. She steadied her breath, trying to compose herself. When you touched the crystal, it must have triggered it to release the memories it was holding directly into me. These aren't my memories, Jake. They're someone else's, centuries old. Is there anything I can do? Should I call someone? Jake's voice was thick with worry. Lyra shook her head slowly, a faint smile breaking through her initial shock. No, just stay with me, please. I need to sort through this. It's overwhelming, but also incredibly revealing. They settled on the couch, the artifact now silent between them. I'm here, Jake reassured her, an arm tentatively finding its way around her shoulders. Whatever you need. Lyra leaned into his embrace, her body still trembling from the experience. Thank you, Jake. I think I'm going to need a friend through this. As the evening wore on, the artifact between them no longer just a relic, but a bridge to unknown parts of a friend's soul, Jake realized that their lives might never be the same again. The accident had awakened something profound and mysterious in Lyra, and he was there, right at the heart of it, ready to face whatever came next. Together, the next morning, Lyra's room was silent, the light from the city's dawn casting soft patterns on the walls. Jake knocked lightly on her door, a tray of steaming coffee in one hand and toast in the other. Lyra, breakfast is ready. Are you up? His voice was gentle, trying not to startle her. The door creaked open, and Lyra appeared, her usually perfect hair tousled, her expression weary yet serene. Morning, Jake. I didn't hear you come in. "Thank you," she said, accepting the tray with a nod. As they settled at the small dining table, Jake watched her closely. "How are you feeling? Any more surprises from last night?" Lyra sipped her coffee, her gaze distant. "It's like waking up in someone else's life. The memories are still there, vivid and detailed. I think I saw through the eyes of a Zalari historian. Sounds intense. Does this happen often with your artifacts?" Jake asked, spreading jam on his toast. "Not usually. They're meant to be accessed in controlled environments with preparation. What happened last night was accidental, unplanned," Lyra explained, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. Jake's curiosity piqued. "What kind of memories did you see? Anything interesting?" Lyra smiled, a spark of excitement in her eyes. "Oh, very. I saw cities floating in the sky, celebrations of solar alignments, and," her voice trailed off, "conflicts too, but nothing like human wars. More like debates and diplomatic challenges." "Diplomatic challenges, huh? We could use some of that calm in human politics," Jake joked, trying to lighten the mood. They finished their breakfast in a companionable silence before Jake stood to clear the table. "What's your plan for today? Anything I can help with to, make things easier?" Lyra considered this, her demeanor thoughtful. "Actually, yes. Could you help me set up a controlled environment? I need to access the artifact again, but safely this time. I need to understand more about these memories." "Sure, anything you need. Just tell me what to do," Jake said as he followed her into the living room. Lyra directed him to move some furniture around, creating a spacious area around the coffee table. "We need a clear space, free of electrical devices and metal. The crystal seems to react to electromagnetic fields." Jake nodded, hauling the couch back. "How's this?" "Perfect," Lyra affirmed. They sat down on the floor, the artifact placed carefully on the table between them. Lyra took a deep breath. "Now, I need you to just be here, watch, and if anything goes wrong, just pull me away or call for medical help." "Got it. I'm here," Jake assured her, his tone serious. Lyra touched the crystal, her eyes closing as she slipped into a meditative state. Jake watched anxiously as her breathing slowed and her body relaxed. Minutes passed, and Lyra's brow furrowed, her lips moving silently. Jake leaned in, intent on her safety, ready to intervene at any sign of distress. Finally, Lyra's eyes fluttered open, a look of awe painted across her face. "I saw it, Jake. The founding of the Zalari Council, the unification of our tribes. It's beautiful. The peace it brought." Jake exhaled, relieved. "Sounds like you got what you needed, and no glowing or passing out this time." Lyra laughed softly, the sound light and joyful. "Yes, thanks to you. I think I'm starting to understand the purpose of these memories. They're not just historical records. They're lessons in peace and unity." Jake smiled, feeling a mix of pride and fascination. "I'm glad I could help. So, what's next for us, Rumi?" "More research, and I think you should be part of it. After all, you're part of this journey now," Lyra said, her voice warm with gratitude. Jake nodded, his heart full. "I wouldn't have it any other way." Together, they began to delve deeper into the memories of a civilization far older and wiser than either had known, forging not just a friendship, but a partnership in uncovering histories that could one day benefit all. Later that week, Jake found himself frequenting the local library with Lyra, diving into old texts and digital archives about alien cultures. It had become their daily ritual after the incident with the artifact. "Why are we looking into human history now?" Jake asked as he scrolled through an ancient human civilization section on the library's holographic display. Lyra, sitting opposite him with several holographic screens floating around her, looked up. "There are parallels, Jake. The Zalari and humans might be more alike than we thought. Understanding your history helps me contextualize my own." "Makes sense," Jake nodded, pulling up another article. "Hey, look at this. Says here that humans used to have these massive gatherings just to discuss ideas and philosophies." Like your Zalari councils. That's exactly it. Lyra's eyes lit up. We had something similar called the Gathering of Thoughts. It was crucial for maintaining peace and sharing knowledge across tribes. Jake leaned back, impressed. You know, the more we talk about this, the more I realize how narrow my view was about aliens. Even about my own history. Lyra smiled softly. It's a common realization when cultures collide. We start seeing reflections of ourselves in each other. The library's ambience offered a quiet, contemplative backdrop as they discussed their findings. Jake found a particular segment about human peace treaties and looked over at Lyra. Did the Zalari have treaties? More like agreements bound by cultural honor rather than written contracts. It's all about the integrity of one's word, she explained. Fascinating how trust works across different species, Jake mused, bookmarking the page. Their conversation was interrupted when Lyra's device pinged with a reminder. Oh, we have that cultural exchange seminar at the university today. We should head out soon. As they packed up their materials, Jake felt a buzz of excitement. What's the seminar about again? It's a panel discussion on interspecies relationships, academic, platonic, and beyond. Thought it might be interesting given our current exploration, Lyra replied with a hint of mischief. Lead the way, Professor, Jake grinned, holding the door for her as they left the library. At the university, the seminar room was filled with a mix of humans and various alien species. Jake and Lyra found seats near the front as the speakers prepared their presentations. One of the panelists, a renowned anthropologist, began discussing the dynamics of human-alien friendships. Jake listened intently, occasionally glancing at Lyra to see her reactions. When the floor opened for questions, Lyra raised her hand. In Zalari culture, friendships are viewed as sacred bonds, almost familial. How do other cultures view such relationships? The anthropologist nodded appreciatively. A wonderful question. In many human cultures, friendships can be both casual and profound, often without the formal acknowledgement of its depth seen in Zalari traditions. Lyra turned to Jake, whispering, "It's interesting to see how formal or informal these bonds can be in different cultures." Jake nodded. "Makes you appreciate what we have, doesn't it?" As the seminar concluded, several attendees approached Lyra, curious about her insights. Jake watched as she confidently shared her knowledge, realizing how much she had come out of her shell since their first encounter. Walking back to the apartment, Jake felt a deeper connection to Lyra. "You were great back there. Ever thought of becoming a cultural ambassador or something?" Lyra laughed, bumping his shoulder lightly. "With you as my manager? Why not?" Their laughter echoed down the street as they walked home under the setting sun. Their paths now permanently intertwined by their shared pursuit of understanding and respect for their respective histories. The evening was unusually warm for the season, the streets bustling with the nightlife of the city. Jake and Lyra had decided to take advantage of the pleasant weather, dining at an open-air restaurant known for its blend of human and alien cuisine. As they settled into their seats, Lyra pointed to a dish on the menu, her expression curious. "Have you ever tried Glinter stew? It's a delicacy on Zealer." Jake chuckled. "I'll try anything once, especially if it's recommended by someone who knows her stuff. Let's get that and, how about some of these fire-roasted tubers? They sound pretty earthy." "Perfect," Lyra agreed, waving down a server to place their order. While they waited for their food, Jake leaned back, taking in the ambience. "You know, it's nice to just sit and talk without worrying about artifacts and history lessons." Lyra nodded, her gaze wandering over the crowd. "It is, though those lessons have given me a lot of perspective on your world. It's fascinating how different, yet similar, we are." Their dishes arrived, steaming and aromatic. Jake watched with amusement as Lyra expertly mixed the stew, explaining the best way to blend the flavors. They tasted each dish, discussing the unique flavors and textures. As they ate, Lyra's demeanor grew contemplative. "Jake, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure, anything," Jake replied, setting down his fork. How do you cope with loneliness, being away from your kind? Lyra asked softly. Jake paused, considering the question. I guess I try to find common ground with those around me. Makes the distance from home feel less vast. What about you? How do you handle it? Lyra sighed. It's been hard, especially because Zalari are usually surrounded by family. But being here with you, learning and sharing, it helps more than I expected. Jake smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. I'm glad I can help. We're kind of like family now, aren't we? Yes, we are. Lyra smiled back, a genuine warmth in her eyes. The conversation drifted to lighter topics as they finished their meal. Afterward, they decided to take a walk through a nearby park, enjoying the cool night air. As they strolled down the pathways, lined with glowing bioluminescent plants, Jake decided to share more about his life back on Earth. When I was a kid, we used to come out to parks like this, play hide and seek until the sun went down. It's one of the things I miss the most. Lyra listened intently, then shared a memory of her own. We have a celebration on Zealer, where everyone in the community comes together to sing traditional songs and share stories. It's about remembering who we are, where we come from. I miss that sense of community. Jake nodded, understanding the sentiment. It's tough being away from those traditions, but maybe we can create new ones together. Here, that sounds wonderful, Lyra agreed, her voice hopeful. They continued their walk, eventually sitting on a bench overlooking a fountain. The water danced under the lights, casting shimmering reflections around them. Thank you for the night, Jake. For the dinner, the talk, the company, Lyra said, her tone sincere. Thank you, too. I've learned a lot from you about patience, understanding, different perspectives. Jake responded, feeling a profound sense of connection. They sat in comfortable silence, each lost in thought, but appreciating the shared moment. As they returned to their apartment, their conversation had deepened their friendship, each feeling less alone and more a part of something greater than themselves. An improvised family, forged not by blood but by shared experiences and mutual understanding. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the city outside. Jake was flipping through a book on interstellar navigation, a topic he'd found fascinating since Lyra introduced him to real star maps. Lyra was across the room, sketching designs based on traditional Zalari art on her digital pad. Hey, Lyra, have you ever actually navigated by the stars, like they did in the old days? Jake asked, breaking the silence. Lyra looked up, her eyes brightening with interest. Yes, actually. It's a fundamental skill for Zalari travelers. The patterns of the stars are more than just guides. They are stories, histories of our ancestors' journeys. That sounds incredible, Jake murmured, genuinely intrigued. I only know about it from books. Would you like to try it sometime? I could teach you some basic alignments, Lyra offered with a smile. Jake nodded eagerly. I'd love that. It's a date. The term hung between them for a moment, charged with an unspoken possibility. They both laughed awkwardly, then returned to their tasks. However, the atmosphere had subtly shifted, filled with a new, palpable energy. After a few minutes, Lyra stood and stretched, walking over to where Jake Saturday. Show me what you're reading, she said, leaning over his shoulder to get a better look at the book. As she did, her hand brushed against Jake's arm. The contact was accidental, light, but it sent a shiver down Jake's spine. He looked up at her, and their eyes met, holding each other's gaze longer than necessary. Sorry, Lyra murmured, stepping back slightly. No, it's okay, Jake replied quickly, his voice a bit hoarse. I don't mind. They both paused, assessing the moment. Lyra bit her lip, considering, then spoke. Jake, can I ask you something? Of course, Jake said, his heart beating faster. In Zalari culture, touching it's more intimate than in human culture. It's not taken lightly, she explained slowly. I understand, Jake responded, his mind racing with the implications of her words. It's just that I don't want to assume, but I feel something, Lyra continued, her voice soft. And I think you might feel it too. Jake swallowed, his usual confidence wavering under the intensity of the moment. I do. I feel it, Lyra. Then may I? Lyra asked, her hand hovering hesitantly over his. Yes, Jake breathed out, and this time when her hand touched his, he met her halfway. The contact was gentle but deliberate. Jake turned his hand over, intertwining his fingers with hers. The sensation was electric, both thrilling and terrifying in its novelty and significance. Lyra's other hand reached up to touch his cheek, and Jake leaned into the touch. His hand rose to cover hers, his eyes never leaving hers. This is new for me, Jake admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. For me, too, Lyra confessed, her face a mixture of wonder and nervousness. But it feels right. They sat like that for what felt like an eternity, exploring the contours of each other's hands, the texture of skin, the warmth shared between them. It was a simple, pure exchange, yet it spoke volumes. Finally, Lyra pulled back slightly, her smile shy but genuine. Thank you, Jake. For what? He asked, his own smile mirroring hers. For being here, for being open to this, she said, squeezing his hand before letting go. Jake felt a pang of loss at the loss of contact, but knew this was just the beginning. Any time, Lyra. And thank you, too. As they returned to their respective seats, both felt a shift in their relationship. What started as a friendship was evolving, guided by mutual respect and a growing affection that neither could deny. The night ended with shared laughter and light conversation, but the touch lingered, a promise of what might come, marking a new chapter in their journey together. The next few days found Jake and Lyra navigating their evolving relationship with a mixture of excitement and cautiousness. As they spent more time together, their interactions deepened, blending their daily routines and interests seamlessly. One afternoon, they decided to attend a local exhibition on galactic art, a fusion of human and alien aesthetic traditions. As they walked through the gallery, Lyra pointed out a piece that used Zalari mineral paints. See the luminescence? That's specific to the mineral sands from the northern region of Zealer. It's rare, Lyra explained, her voice tinged with pride. Jake studied the artwork, appreciating the depth and complexity of the colors. It's beautiful. You know, your culture has such a rich visual language. Makes me realize how straightforward and literal human art tends to be. Lyra smiled. Perhaps, but there's a certain charm to that directness. It's honest, unguarded. Like you. Jake laughed, bumping her shoulder playfully. I'll take that as a compliment. As they moved to the next piece, Jake's hand found Lyra's, their fingers intertwining naturally. This time, there was no hesitation in their touch, only a comforting warmth that filled Jake with a sense of belonging. You know, Jake started, as they stood before a sculpture that represented interstellar unity. This might sound strange, but I feel more at home with you than I've felt anywhere else. Lyra squeezed his hand, her gaze meeting his. I feel the same. I didn't expect to find a home here in this way, with someone so different from me. Their conversation drifted to dreams and future possibilities. They discussed potentially traveling together, perhaps even visiting Zealer, something Lyra hadn't considered since her arrival on Earth. Would you take me there? To Zealer, I mean, Jake asked, a hint of eagerness in his voice. Lyra's expression softened. I would love that. To show you my world, as you've shown me yours, it would be special. The gallery slowly emptied, leaving them alone among the art pieces. Jake, feeling emboldened by their shared connection, leaned closer to Lyra. Lyra, I've been thinking a lot about us, about this. What are we doing here? Lyra paused, considering his words. We're exploring, Jake. Not just art, not just culture, but us. Whatever this is, it's new. It's a little scary, but it's also very real. Jake nodded, his heart full. I don't want to rush anything. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. We are, Jake. We're right here, together. Let's just take it one step at a time, Lyra reassured him, her voice gentle. They lingered in the gallery until the lights dimmed, signaling closing time. Hand in hand, they left the building, the evening air cool against their faces. As they walked home, their conversation turned light again, filled with laughter and playful teasing. But underneath the banter was a solid foundation of mutual respect and growing affection. Back at the apartment, they shared a simple meal, talking late into the night. It wasn't just their words that conveyed intimacy, but the comfortable silences, the easy exchanges, and the unspoken understanding that they were building something unique and precious. Before they said goodnight, Jake stopped Lyra at her door. "Thank you for today, for everything." Lyra reached up to touch his cheek, a mirror their first touch that felt like a lifetime ago. "Thank you, Jake, for being you." They smiled, their eyes holding promises neither needed to voice. As they parted ways for the night, the shared look lingered, a silent acknowledgement of their deepening bond, one that was slowly but surely changing both their worlds. Morning light filtered softly through the blinds, casting a warm glow across Jake's living room where he and Lyra had fallen asleep on the couch, wrapped in a shared blanket after a late night of talking and watching old movies. Jake woke first, feeling the weight of Lyra's head on his shoulder and the gentle rhythm of her breathing. Carefully, he shifted to get a better look at her, smiling at how peaceful she looked in sleep. "Morning," he whispered, not sure if she was awake. Lyra stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Morning," she replied groggily, smiling back at him. She sat up, stretching her arms. "Did we fall asleep here?" "Looks like it," Jake chuckled. "Slept surprisingly well. Actually," Lyra nodded, her smile lingering. "Me too." She glanced around the room, then back at Jake. "I guess we should talk about last night." Jake's heart skipped a beat, unsure how to read her tone. "Yeah, I suppose we should. About what this means for us." Lyra's expression was thoughtful. "Yes, Jake, I've never felt this way before. With anyone, it's all so new and overwhelming, but in a good way." Jake reached for her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "I feel the same, Lyra. It's not just new for you. This is uncharted territory for me, too. But I know I want to keep exploring it. With you." Lyra's smile deepened, her eyes bright with unspoken emotions. "I'm glad. I was worried." "Worried?" Jake's brow furrowed. "That maybe you might think this is too complicated, with me being Zalari and all." She trailed off, looking uncertain. Jake shook his head firmly. "Lyra, if I've learned anything from you, it's that differences can be bridged. They make things richer, more worthwhile. I don't care about complications. I care about you." Lyra's relief was palpable. She leaned in, her forehead resting against his. "Thank you, Jake. That means more than you know." They sat in silence for a moment, simply enjoying each other's presence. Finally, Jake stood, stretching. "How about breakfast?" "I'm thinking pancakes." "My treat." "That sounds perfect," Lyra said, her voice light. As Jake busied himself in the kitchen, Lyra joined him, fetching ingredients from the cabinets. The atmosphere was easy, filled with light teasing and laughter as they cooked together. "So, how do you like your pancakes?" Jake asked, flipping one on the skillet. "Surprise me," Lyra replied with a playful grin. Jake decided on blueberries and whipped cream, a classic choice. They sat down to eat, the conversation flowing effortlessly. They talked about everything and nothing, from trivial daily decisions to deeper discussions about their hopes and dreams. After breakfast, they cleaned up together, the mundane task somehow enjoyable with Lyra's company. Once everything was put away, Lyra turned to Jake with a serious look. "Jake, there's something else I've been meaning to discuss," she began, her tone shifting. "What's up?" Jake asked, sensing her hesitation. "It's about the artifact. I think I've gleaned all I can from it alone. I want to take it to a Zalari elder here in the city. Maybe they can help us understand more about the memories it holds." Jake nodded, understanding the importance of the request. Of course, anything you need. I'll come with you, if you'd like. Lyra's smile returned, grateful and affectionate. I'd like that very much. As they prepared to leave, the morning's conversations lingered between them, a mix of newfound love and deepening trust. They stepped out into the day, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing they would face them together. Jake and Lyra stood before the ornate doors of the Zalari Cultural Center, a modern building that stood out in the city with its organic, flowing architecture inspired by the natural forms of Zealer. Lyra held the ancient artifact securely in a small, padded case. She looked at Jake, her nerves apparent. "Ready?" Jake asked, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Lyra nodded. "As I'll ever be. Let's do this." They were greeted inside by Elder Miru, a respected figure in the Zalari community, known for her wisdom and deep knowledge of their people's traditions and history. Her presence was calming, and she welcomed them with a warm smile. "Lyra, and this must be Jake." "Welcome," Elder Miru said, her voice soothing. "I understand you have something quite significant to discuss." "Yes, Elder Miru," Lyra began, opening the case to reveal the artifact. "This has awakened memories, not my own. We hope you can help us understand its purpose and origin better." Elder Miru examined the artifact with a reverent touch. "Ah, yes. This is a memory keeper. Very rare. It holds the collective experiences of our ancestors. It's a conduit for their wisdom and guidance." Jake watched, fascinated. Is there a way to access these memories without the overwhelming effects Lyra experienced? "It requires preparation and understanding," the elder explained. "It's not just about seeing the memories. It's about feeling them, understanding the context and the emotions intertwined with those memories." Lyra listened intently, her eyes fixed on the elder. "How do we prepare for this?" Elder Miru invited them to sit down at a round table. "It starts with understanding oneself. The memories will resonate differently depending on who accesses them. You, Lyra, are connected by lineage, and you, Jake, are an outsider to our experiences. Both perspectives are valuable." They spent the next hours discussing the techniques for safely interacting with the artifact. Elder Miru guided them through mental exercises, breathing techniques, and even meditative practices designed to stabilize emotions and enhance understanding. As the session ended, Elder Miru handed the artifact back to Lyra. "Use this wisely. It is not just a tool, but a part of our heritage, a bridge between the past and the future." "Thank you, Elder Miru," Lyra said, her voice full of gratitude. "We will." Outside, the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the city. Jake and Lyra walked through the quiet streets, each lost in thought about the day's revelations. "Jake, today was more than I expected," Lyra said, breaking the silence. Jake nodded. "It was incredible. I feel like I'm starting to understand not just your culture, but you on a deeper level." Lyra smiled, leaning her head against his shoulder as they walked. "And I never thought I'd share this part of my life with someone else, especially not someone from another world." As they reached their apartment, Jake stopped, turning to face her. "Lyra, no matter what the future holds, I want you to know I'm here. For you, for us." Lyra reached up, her hand gently caressing his cheek. "And I for you, whatever comes. We face it together." They stood there, under the stars, feeling the weight and the wonder of their journey together. It wasn't just about the past or the future, but about the moments they shared, the challenges they overcame, and the bond they forged. Inside the apartment, they placed the artifact back on its shelf, now not just a relic of the past, but a part of their shared story. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, navigating their differences and the expectations of their respective communities. But that night, as they settled down together, they felt ready to face whatever came their way. Together, they had found love, understanding, and a promise of new beginnings, not just for themselves, but potentially for their peoples. "Here's to the future, Lyra," Jake said, his voice steady and sure. To the future, Lyra echoed, her tone matching his, filled with hope and certainty. Together, they turned to face whatever the next day would bring, their hearts united, their paths intertwined, ready to explore the vast universe side by side.